We thought we knew everything about my husband's daughter until the day she vanished without a trace. Stepdaughter wanted to live with us full time. We said no, then found out that my husband isn't her real dad and now she's gone missing. I've been married to my husband for 6 years. We have 2 kids together, 8M and 4M. Our youngest is special needs. My husband also has a daughter, 12, from his previous relationship. My husband's ex has had primary custody. My husband gets SD on weekends and alternating holidays/birthdays. This past weekend, my SD asked my husband if she can come live with him full-time. Her mom recently moved in with her fiancé and his kids, and there has been some friction with that from what I understand. Nothing nefarious, just new house, new rules, having to share a bedroom, etc. My husband didn't give her an answer either way. He said he would look into it. When he and I were discussing it, I had the following objections. SD and our kids do not get along. It is something we have worked on for years, in and out of therapy, and it just ain't happening. SD resents mine for existing, and is cruel towards my youngest for their disabilities. There have been issues with her bullying. My oldest is very protective of his little brother and hates SD for being mean to his brother. He has started physical altercations with her over it. The truth is that most of the time we have SD, I make arrangements to take the boys to visit their grandparents, or husband takes her out of the house for daddy-daughter time to avoid conflict. I cannot imagine how living together full-time would be for them. We really don't have room. We have a 4BR home. Both my husband and I WFH so we can be a caretaker for my youngest. Due to the nature of his disabilities, it is really not feasible for him and my oldest to share a room. It wouldn't be safe or fair for my oldest. My SD's room is used as my WFH office space during the week. I arrange my vacation time and whatnot around her visitation so I can stay out of her space while she is here. I have to take very sensitive phone calls, and I need a closed door when I work so common areas are out, and my husband uses our bedroom as his home office, so that's out too. We don't currently have room in the budget to make an addition to the house or remodel non-livable spaces at the moment. My husband hears my objections and understands them, but he wants to go for it and figures that everything will eventually work out. He doesn't want his daughter to think he is abandoning her, and I feel for the girl. It would be awful for your dad to say no when you ask if you can live with him. But I have my own kids to think about too, and I just do not believe that her living here is in their best interest at all, considering their history and our current living arrangements. Does saying no to this put me in evil stepmom territory? Edit, for the people who want to make me into an horrible homewrecker to go along with being an evil stepmom. Sorry to disappoint, but we did not have an affair. My husband and my stepdaughter's mom were never married. They were never in a relationship. They were friends with benefits. They bartended together, would shoot the bull, and would sometimes get drunk and fuck. My husband claims he needed beer Google's cause she really isn't his type. When my SD's mom found out she was pregnant, she told my husband she was keeping it and asked if he wanted to be in the baby's life. They never lived together except for a few weeks during the newborn stage to help out. Yes, I had my first before I married my husband. My husband and I were in a long-term relationship when I had a birth control malfunction. My husband and I discussed what we wanted to do, and we both decided we wanted to raise the child. A few days later, my husband proposed. I wanted to take time to recover from birth and wait until our kiddo was old enough to pawn him off on the grandparents for the week so husband and I could enjoy our wedding. We didn't get married until my oldest was 2. Edit 2, regarding my youngest son's disabilities, SD's bullying, and my oldest starting fight, since there is a lot of projection and speculation. My youngest son has both physical and mental disabilities. He uses multiple kinds of medical and therapy equipment. My SD has shoved him out of his wheelchair. She has pinched him hard enough to leave bruises. She has hit his face when he was having trouble verbalizing. I'd gaff if this is normal sibling behavior. It is alarming enough to me that I feel it is best for my youngest to spend as little time as possible with her until this behavior completely stops, and I will say it quite a bit. We went through a period of it happening frequently, and it has slowed. The last incident was 2 months ago when SD grabbed my son's wheelchair and aggressively pushed him out of her way because he was blocking the hallway. One of the times that my son had started an altercation with her was because she had told my son that his brother was not a real person and that she was going to call the hospital to have him taken away so they could perform experiments to find out what it was. She went into detail about things they would do to him. It's like ripping his fingernails out. And yes, my son did lose his temper and hit her. My son was immediately disciplined, loss of tablet time, and we had an age-appropriate discussion about how his heart is in the right place to want to protect his little brother, but he needs to find an adult when something like that happens. This was not made up. Stepdaughter admitted she said it to my husband when he was able to sit her down and talk with her later in the day. I am not allowed to discipline or have parenting talks with SD per Biomom's wishes. I am not welcome to be a part of SD's therapy journey, mostly per Biomom's wishes. She does not want me involved. My husband has always been worried about rocking the boat with by a mom on these things. So I do not know the extent of what therapeutic treatments she has had. I do know she does go to therapy during the week, and my husband has gone to sessions, but it isn't something he is free to discuss with me. So I am in the dark about that. Edit 3, there's someone in the comments who claims to be my sister-in-law. They are either a troll or are mistaken. My husband is an only child. I don't have a sister-in-law. Edit 4, thank you all for your comments and insights. There were a few points I wanted to clarify based on some of the questions and feedback I've received. On whether my stepdaughter has a clear understanding of what living with us full-time would actually be like. Several of you mentioned that my stepdaughter might have an unrealistic view of what it would mean to live here full-time. I completely agree. Right now, when she's here on the weekends, her dad's attention is pretty much entirely on her, 90% of it, if I'm being honest, because of the visitation schedule and the ongoing tension between her and my sons. I think she's imagining that this level of attention and special treatment would continue if moved in full-time, but the reality is very different. I don't think she would enjoy the day-to-day grind here any more than she does at her mom's house. But at the end of the day, she's still a kid, and I understand that her perspective might be a little skewed. Why does she want to leave her mom's house? There were some really thoughtful concerns about whether something more serious like neglect or abuse might be going on at her mom's place. I want to reassure everyone that it's nothing like that. The main reason she's upset is because she now has to share a room with her soon-to-be stepsister. This is a temporary situation since her stepsister will be moving out in the fall and will only be back for weekends and holidays, but I get why it's bothering her right now. On top of that, her mom and her mom's partner have decided that all the kids will follow the same set of rules. That means she has new limits on screen time and more household responsibilities, which are new to her. It's been an adjustment, but nothing harmful, just growing pains and a new blended family situation. I've also seen some confusion about the relationships in our family. To clarify, my husband and I had our first child together before we got married. He proposed after we found out I was pregnant, but I wanted to wait until after the birth before we got married. We didn't actually tie the knot until our first child was 2 years old. As for my husband and my stepdaughter's mom, they were never in a relationship, never married. It was a casual sexual relationship, friends with benefits type of thing, and they both bartended together. When my stepdaughter's mom found out she was pregnant, she told my husband, and he chose to be involved in his daughter's life from the beginning. They never lived together aside from a short time after the baby was born when my husband helped out during the newborn stage. I hope this clears up some of the questions. I appreciate everyone's input and will keep you updated as things progress. Update 1, so last week my husband and I sat down together and talked about SD coming to live with us full-time and how that would work out. It was a difficult discussion because, as some had suggested, I really pushed hard for him to really think things through and figure out the obstacles. Where would he and I work? Common areas are out due to the nature of our jobs. I can't due to employer restrictions. He does some NSFW things, and as we don't want the kids to see. How are we going to handle the animosity and bullying between the kids? What consequences would be in place? We talked about what expectations would be for SD living here full-time versus just weekends. About how she probably has unrealistic expectations about what the nitty-gritty life here is like. We talked through very possibility we could come up with, including out there possibilities like selling out home or separating our household and living apart for a while. We ran numbers to see how it may affect our finances. And ultimately we agreed that the answer was not yet with a goal for our family working towards it, and that the best course of action would be to slowly adjust the amount of time she spends in our home versus a sudden custody switch. So free night, my husband took SD out to talk to her about everything. He explained to her that she wouldn't have her own room at our place for a couple years, but that is something that is on the top of the list for home improvements once our youngest handicap accessibility renovations are paid off. He talked to her about what expectations of living with us would be like, that she would have chores and responsibilities. And most importantly, they talked about the bullying and laid down the provision that we needed to see her relationship and attitude towards her brothers improve before she can live here full-time. SD obviously wasn't thrilled about any of this, but she said okay and that she would do better with her brothers. So Saturday I made arrangements for my parents to watch our sons, and we invited SD's mom over so we could all sit down and figure out how SD can start to spend more time here. And that is when it fell apart. Mom is not okay with the change in custody at all. Absolutely not was her answer. She took SD home early Sat. My husband tried to reach out to SD on Sun to see how she was and ask if she wanted to do their guitar lesson over Skype or something since her mom took her home early, but she never responded. He called SD's mom and she informed him that SD had lost her phone privileges. So we don't really know what is going on with all that. Edit, some of you asked about the situation with my SD losing her phone privileges. After some back and forth, we found out that she threw her phone at her mom's face, which cracked the screen. Naturally, her mom wasn't thrilled about that and has decided not to give the phone back until SD pays off the deductible to fix it. For now, we still have alternative ways of contacting her, so we're not completely cut off. On why my stepdaughter wants to live with us and whether her bio mom knew about these plans, there's been some confusion about this, so I want to clear things up. SD's mom didn't come to us with this request. My stepdaughter actually approached us the weekend before last, asking if she could live with us full-time. This all started because she and her mom recently moved in with her mom's partner, and there's been some friction there. My husband told SD that we'd need to discuss it and see if it was even feasible before making any promises. We didn't talk to her bio mom until after we'd had time to work out a plan and see if it was a possibility. But as soon as SD's mom found out that her daughter wanted to spend more time with us, she immediately shut it down. So that's where we're at with that. I've seen several comments again speculating that my SD might be experiencing abuse at her mom's house. I want to say that I completely understand the concern, and I agree that it's important to keep that possibility in mind. Abuse can happen to anyone, and I'm not naive to that. That said, I don't have any specific reason to believe that's what's happening here. My SD's mom has been with her partner for 5 or 6 years now, and my stepdaughter has spent plenty of time around him over those years. The recent change is that they've only just moved in together. From what my SD has told us, the main issues are around having to share a room with her new stepsister and adjusting to new house rules. As far as I know, my SD has a good relationship with her dad and hasn't confided anything about her stepdad making her uncomfortable. I want to believe she would tell her dad if something was wrong, though I acknowledge there's always a chance she wouldn't. For now, we're monitoring the situation closely, but I don't have any strong evidence to suggest there's anything more serious going on. We're still working through how to handle all of this, especially with SD's mom being so firm in her stance. I'll keep you all updated as we learn more and figure out our next steps. Update 2: my husband has a daughter that predates our relationship. We also have 2 children of our own, one of which is severely disabled. He and his daughter's bio mom never had a formal custody arrangement, but due to some recent drama and changes, it became apparent we needed to get something formal and court-ordered in place. So we consulted an attorney. While on that course, we discovered that my husband wasn't listed on the birth certificate. We had paternity testing done. My husband is not the biological father. He is absolutely devastated. He's spiraling. He's hurting so bad, and I can't do anything to take his pain away. We've hugged and cried together so many times this week. He's not okay. He's flip-flopping through despair and anger. The anger scares me. His knuckles are all fucked up from punching something. He wouldn't talk to me about what happened. Shit is falling apart at home. My husband is in no place to be a father and partner right now. I sent our oldest to my sister's, but my youngest is having a really bad week with his medical issues. I think he picks up on the stress/mood of the house. We had to go to the ER last night due to the increased seizure activity. When I came home, my husband was fucking drunk. He became belligerent and demanded I have our sons tested too. He didn't even ask how our son was doing. I was so pissed off but held my tongue and walked out of the room. I left a few Gatorades and some aspirin next to him after he passed out. I'm trying to get him in to see a therapist. No dice so far. We haven't told SD or bio mom yet. We've already skipped one of our regularly scheduled visitations with SD, and another is coming up soon. So that is going to need to be dealt with ASAP? I just don't know what to do. I'm so afraid right now. I don't know how much longer I can hold things together. I want off this ride. New update: I had a couple people asking if I would update and let you guys know how my husband is doing now that we are a couple months out from our D-Day. Some things are better, and others are a hell of a lot worse. Not long after I posted, my husband and I had the biggest, full-blown, drawn-out fight of our entire relationship. I honestly cannot even tell you how it started. It was one of those little things that just triggered, and all the stress, anger, resentment, and other negative emotions we had been feeling were just completely taken out on one another. I took the kids and left afterwards. I refused to come home until my husband got his head out of his ass and talked to someone about all of this. The silver lining to the big blowout was it did spur my husband on to start dealing with everything. He has been to his doctor and has been prescribed medication, and he has been looking for a therapist. He did a session with one, but didn't particularly click with them. He is going to pursue others as our finances allow. My husband and I discussed his drunken demand for paternity testing. I was able to express how hurtful that was to me. He apologized fully and has decided he does not need to have our sons tested right now. We've discussed options for what we'll do if doubt continues to linger on my husband's part, but as of now, no testing is being done. Husband and I are both trying our best to show each other grace on this matter. The hell of a lot worse part is what is going on with stepdaughter. My husband had to take a few weeks without visitation to get his own emotions under control. Then we had our typical weekend visit. We did not tell stepdaughter or bio mom about the test results yet, as we were still considering our options for the next move. My husband had ultimately decided that he still wanted a relationship with his daughter and still wanted to pursue legal custody. The attorney we had consulted suggested that with our state's laws and the established parental relationship, we should have a claim and could likely get court-ordered partial custody, but it would be a more complicated legal case. So that's all fine and dandy, but my husband, in a very boneheaded move, did not play his cards close enough to his chest with bio mom. Several weeks ago, they had a verbal altercation. We have not been able to get in contact with bio mom, her fiancé or stepdaughter since. We contacted the police, who told us this was a civil matter and we needed to go through the court, so no help there. Sorry, I wish I had a happier update, or more of an update in general. Next story. Adopted my dead best friend's baby. Years later, my brother convinced his fiancée was having an affair and got her to DNA test my daughter. I, 30M, have a daughter who's 6. I am not biologically related to her at all. There is no blood relation between us. I was friends with her mother for most all of my childhood. We were never involved romantically and were always just friends. She had her daughter at 23 with her 25-year-old husband. When my daughter was a newborn, about 3 months technically, both her mother and father were killed. I won't go into too much detail for privacy reasons, but it was workplace shooting. My friend and her husband had worked in the same building and were both killed. Both my friend and her husband had grown up with less than ideal families and didn't have any siblings, so there wasn't any next of kin for their daughter to go to. However, because I was close with them, I was able to adopt her. Even though I had been iffy about the idea of kids, I didn't want their daughter to grow up in foster care or around people who didn't have a connection to her by a parent, so I stepped in. My parents and siblings know that my daughter is not my actual daughter biologically speaking. My daughter, I'll call Lily for the post, also knows that she's adopted. I never really hid the fact that she was adopted. She knows her parents are dead and were killed by a bad man, but I'm saving the details for when she's older. Lily does not look like me at all. She looks exactly like her mother and biological dad. Most people assume that I'm her bio dad and that she just took after her mom. I don't ever really correct this when and if people assume this because it just seems unnecessary. My brother has been with his fiancée for about 2 years now. A few weeks ago, we were all meeting up at my parents' house, and my Sil saw an old picture of me, my friend, and her husband. She pointed to my friend and asked who she was, and I explained that was Lily's mother. Sil got quiet and stood in front of the picture for a while. I didn't think much of it. To clarify, she knows my friend died, but I guess didn't know that she had been married, or that Lily is not my bio daughter. I suppose she assumed my daughter was mine and my friend's biological daughter. My Sil got a DNA test done on my daughter behind my back. She used my brother's DNA for the test, and when it came back that they weren't related, she knew that meant me and Lily weren't related. She came up to me with the results and waved them in my face, saying that I was taking care of a dead woman's affair baby. She said this to me in front of my daughter. I just stared at her for a while before bursting out laughing at this. I told her I knew Lily wasn't my biological daughter, and that this thing called adoption exists. Her face went red and she stormed off. My brother is mad I embarrassed his fiancée, but I said she embarrassed herself by DNA testing a kid that isn't hers and then parading the results up to me. What did she want me to do? What was her goal with this? Did she want me to break down and abandon my daughter? My brother said she thought she was doing the right thing and called me an asshole. I don't feel like the asshole, especially considering my Sil was the one who stuck her nose where it doesn't belong. I'm asking for Reddit opinions, mostly just for validation, so was I the asshole? Did the brother's fiancée assume Oop was married to the deceased friend? Oop, I can see how she assumed that we were together. In the picture, I had my arm around her shoulders. This was before my friend was married to her husband. At the time that picture was taken, they were just friends. Commenter, I think you're a hero. I'm proud of you. If anything ever happens to me, I know my daughter will be so loved and cared for and raised in a loving household. I hope somehow your friend and Lily's daddy are resting peacefully knowing she's got a papa that loves her. I'm going back to cutting onions now. Oop, I appreciate that a lot. I'm doing my best to raise Lily with the values and beliefs her mother and bio dad had and wanted to raise her with. Even if some of them differ a bit from my own, does Oop know what kind of DNA test Sil took for his daughter? Oop, I believe they were doing one of those home DNA kits, though I don't know what company they did it through. Commenter, NTA, she wanted to stir some shit up. That's a hell of a lot of effort to help. Also, I'd be pissed about how she got Lily's DNA to do this. It didn't go the way she thought it would, so she got mad. Your brother is just trying to side with his soon-to-be wife. Update. August 31st, 2024, my brother thought I had been having an affair with Lily's mom and thought I was Lily's bio dad. He tricked Sil into believing that I was in a relationship with Lily's mom and was Lily's bio dad. Sil then saw the picture of Lily's mom and her husband and assumed Lily was an affair child between the two of them and was being led on to believe that I was Lily's bio dad. My Sil ended up coming to my house and apologizing, as well as telling me the full story. My brother put her up to the DNA test. When I first adopted Lily, my brother for some reason believed that Lily was my bio daughter. He thought that me and Lily's mom were together and just weren't telling anyone. He believes that when she got pregnant, Lily's mom told me that Lily was, and that she was going to just say that it was her husband's, and I went along with it because I didn't really want kids. Sil was under the impression I believed I was Lily's bio dad. She saw the picture of Lily's mom and I, and after asking for clarification on who she was, assumed we were together in it, and then got suspicious when she saw that the other guy in the picture, Lily's actual bio dad, looked a lot like Lily. I also want to clarify, I didn't tell her that Lily's bio dad was in the picture because she had specifically pointed to Lily's mom, and I assumed she knew that Lily was adopted. I didn't know my brother had been telling her lied for nearly 2 years. She got the DNA test out of her own suspicions, and my brother helped her with it because he thought it would reveal that I was actually Lily's bio dad. He manipulated her into thinking that it would clear the air of suspicion, when really he was just trying to prove that I was really Lily's bio dad and lying about the reasons for adoption. Well, of course the results proved I wasn't Lily's bio dad and that my brother was wrong. My brother felt too embarrassed to confess to his fiancée as that he had lied about the circumstances, which is why Sil confronted me with the results. My Sil also apologized for showing me the results in front of my daughter. She told me that her mom had an affair and cheated on her father, got pregnant with another man's kid, and had let her father believe the kid was his. Her father was devastated by this when he found out, and she grew very resentful of women who do that to their spouses. She had wanted to sit me down and talk to me about it without my daughter, but when she saw me with my daughter, she got angry thinking I was being led on to believe I was raising my daughter when I was actually raising another man's kid. And she ended up exploding and immediately waved the results in my face. My Sil does feel very guilty, and she's angry at my brother for lying to her. I'm not angry at her for doing the test, because she thought she was doing the right thing. I also forgave her for the way she told me about the results, because clearly affairs are a sensitive subject for her and I can understand why she would have exploded like that. I'm pretty sure she plans to break up with my brother now, and I don't blame her. When I called and asked my brother about this, he admitted it. When I asked why he would think this, he said that he couldn't think of a reason why a man who had been against having kids at the time would willingly adopt a baby without having a blood connection to it. He told Sil that I was Lily's bio dad and was aware of the fact. He took it a step further and said that me and Lily's mom were together at the time of Lily's conception. Both me and my parents are going low contact with my brother for a while now. I know I will forgive my brother eventually, but I can't do that right now. He believed I was low enough to have an affair with a married woman, get her pregnant, take no responsibility, allow her to pass off the kid as another man's, and then only take responsibility because her mom died. Relevant comments, oop, on how Lily is handling all of those. Is she mad at her uncle and his fiancé? Oop, she was confused and I had to explain to her what Sil had said in terms she would understand. She was angry Sil would think that low of her mom, and I had to explain that she had been lied to and didn't think that anymore. She's not mad at Sil anymore but doesn't want to ever talk to her uncle again. Oop on fatherhood since adopting Lily. Oop. LOL, yes, I can admit that I'm definitely a lot softer since becoming a father. Adopting my daughter made me have to mature, something I wasn't in my 20s when I adopted her. Both your brother and Sil are getting off too lightly. He butted into your family and lied to his wife. And sensitive issue or not, she still violated your daughter's privacy, then called her an affair child derisively in front of her. When I asked why he would think this, he said that he couldn't think of a reason why a man who had been against having kids at the time would willingly adopt a baby without having a blood connection to it. Your brother really showing his whole ass here. Your brother was both a terrible sibling and partner. He riled up his fiancée based on her trauma in order to enlist her to help in deceiving you. Awful. Oop, I really want to stress this point. Took the words right out my mouth. I'm not mad at my Sil because I know she was manipulated into doing this by my brother. I wish more people could understand that update too. I don't know if multiple updates are allowed for this sub. If not, take this down and I'll post to my profile. Some people were wondering what happened with my brother and Sil. Well, she dumped him. They tried to make it work, but that only lasted a few days and she ended up giving him the ring back. My brother got shit-faced drunk on my front lawn in the middle of the night. I was pissed because Lily had school the next morning and this woke her up. My brother was yelling insults to both me and my daughter. We called police and he spent the night in jail for drunken disturbance. I believe the official charge was something like that. I sure as hell pressed charges because he was saying some borderline threatening statements to me and my daughter. I don't think it's enough to qualify for a restraining order, but if it is, I'll get a temporary one. On a more positive note, Lily is doing well. She's getting straight A's in even subject and is excited about her first ever science project. She's been talking my ear off about it. Send help, LOL.
My wife confessed she no longer sees my son as her own. Now I fear for his future in our family. Wife said she was okay not having kids. Now she wants her own baby and says I should have married the woman who assaulted me to give our son a real mom. 6 years ago I, 28M, got drunk at a friend's wedding, and a woman, Anna 39F, whom I had rejected multiple times throughout the night, ended up forcing herself on me while I was nearly passed out. It was a whole mess and I fell into a deep depression. Things got worse when Anna showed up at my door after a few weeks saying she was pregnant. I begged her to have an abortion and leave me alone, but my dad and stepmother welcomed her into our house like nothing had happened. I never wanted to have kids, so when this happened I was clear with Anna that I didn't want anything to do with her, but I'd pay child support. I also cut contact with my dad for supporting her. After a few months my son was born and Anna just disappeared. Nobody knew where she went, or they didn't want to tell me. My dad also refused to help because I had cut him off, so I was on my own. To be honest, I fell in love with my baby right away. Seeing him fight to survive and then holding him in my arms was the happiest moment of my life. And while it was hard, I made it work, just the two of us. Then, 3 years ago I met my wife Claire, 26F. We dated for 1 year and have been married for 2. Even when we were just dating she was always perfect, and she adored my son Archie, 5M now. She would play with him and read him stories, and never said anything bad about him. She knew what had happened, but she was so loving and understanding, and I thought I had won the lottery by meeting her. The same happened when I met Claire's family. Everyone was so welcoming and they loved Archie so much. They offered to babysit him and even took him on vacation so Claire and I could have a weekend to ourselves. A few weeks ago I told Claire that I wanted to have a vasectomy so we could have a better sex life. She asked me if I was really sure, and when I said yes she got very quiet and changed the subject. Now, even before we got married I was very clear that I didn't want any more children. At the time she said she was fine with that because we already had Archie. I knew she was upset, so I brought it up constantly until she finally admitted that she was hoping I'd changed my mind so we could have another child. Claire said she understood why I didn't want kids in first place due to my childhood, but that I had become a perfect dad to Archie and I'd be a perfect dad for our second child too. She also said she had asked him if he wanted a little brother or sister and he had been very excited about it. I got upset when she said this and accused her of trying to manipulate my son, so we ended up having a big fight about it. The next day she apologized, but she still wanted me to think it over. She said she'd support me no matter what I decided, but that this was important to her. I told her that I was hurt because she had never mentioned this before, and she just said that she was allowed to change her mind. Finally, she told me that we should talk with her parents so I could hear from them before making a decision. I admit I freaked out because I didn't want to discuss my sex life with my in-laws, but she assured me that she had just told them because they were close and she was looking for advice on how to bring it up to me. Anyway, last night we had dinner with her parents. We visit them every other Thursday since that's my Phil's day off, and it was a disaster. I explained how I'd never wanted kids until Archie was born, and how even then he was the exception. For their part, they told me how much Claire wanted to have a child of her own, and how this could be good for all of us. Where things got messy was when they said they wanted to have their first grandchild. I told them that Claire and I had been talking about her adopting Archie, and my mill said but he still wouldn't be my real grandson. They also said how they loved my son but they couldn't love him like a real family member because they were not related by blood. Finally, my wife said she was having second thoughts about the adoption because Archie already had a mum and she didn't think she'd be able to bond with him like a real mother. So that's also why she wanted to have a child of her own. I was devastated, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of my in-laws, so I just told them I'd think about it and to give me some time. So now I'm sitting at home thinking that I don't really know Claire. I didn't know she felt this way about my son and wondering if she had been pretending all this time. If we have another kid, I believe she and her family will just ignore Archie in favor of their real grandchild. And if we don't have another child, I fear she will just resent us or even become abusive towards my son. But at the same time, I don't want to throw away an otherwise perfect relationship and I really love Claire. Would I be the if I divorce my wife over this? I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this relationship can be saved. Any advice would also be welcome since I don't have anyone else I can talk to right now. Edit. Thanks everyone for the comments. I haven't been able to reply to everyone, but I'd like to answer some questions. Did I talk to my wife about not having children before we got married? Yes, we had the discussion at least 3 times and she always mentioned she was okay with it. 2. Do I treat her like a nanny or there is money involved? No. I earn more than she does, but she still has a good job. She does work from home, but Archie is still in daycare because I want him to socialize with other children and I didn't want her work to be affected by having to look after a toddler all the time. 3. Will I get therapy? I've had a therapist for 4 years now. Archie is also in therapy. 4. Why didn't I have a vasectomy years ago? I got no excuses here. I'm just an idiot. 5. Why did I get married after only 1 year of dating? We were both in love and rushed into things. I'm also an idiot for this, apparently. 6. Did I get a DNA test? WTF. I didn't get a paternity test right away when he was born because I didn't care. I had already put my name on his birth certificate, and after Anna left I just wanted to take care of him. I did eventually get a paternity test done, spoiler alert, he is mine, but it was mostly for legal purposes since I wanted to take him out of the country for a job opportunity. 7. What happened to Anna? Who knows? I never heard from her after she left. My dad said he didn't know anything. And my friends from the wedding said they didn't know where she went either. Date. Did I report Anna? I tried. Unfortunately, I grew up in a country with some outdated ideas and I wasn't taken seriously by the police. Finally, I know that my in-laws were biased and that they would take Claire's side. I knew that when I agreed to have dinner with them, but I genuinely wanted to know if there was something Claire wasn't telling me. I was, and still am, confused and full of doubts about the whole kids thing, so I wanted to understand where she was coming from and what she was feeling. I just never imagined they felt the way they did about my son. Comments where the OP has replied, sure sans mores, if a post involves a stepmom, assume the absolute worst and tear her to shreds, seriously. In her heart, she doesn't see Archie as her son and doesn't feel fulfilled as a mother, but she and her family have loved and treated Archie well enough that OP didn't notice, unless he's completely oblivious to the world around him. She's not abusing Archie or doing anything crazy. It's kind of super fucking natural and normal to want to create your own child, LOL. OOP, you could be right that I missed something and I've been trying to think back in case I've missed any signs, but I can't think of anything. When we moved in together, she wanted to pull Archie out of daycare saying she could look after him. She works from home. Even though that didn't happen, she still picks him up every day after her own work is finished, and she spends a couple hours with him until I get home. As for her family, I wasn't kidding when I said they were the ones offering to babysit Archie. Another example is that when we invited the in-laws to dinner at our house, my Bill would basically ignore everyone and would just play or watch movies with Archie. That's why I'm also confused about this. I literally didn't see it coming. Update, August 10th, 2024. I appreciate everyone who took the time to read my previous post and commented with their advice. I was happy to see so many people sharing their own experiences as step-parents or stepchildren, and those who tried to put themselves in my wife's shoes. It gave me a new perspective, and that helped a lot. I also saw some people asking for an update, so here it is. Since Archie plays football every Saturday, I asked a friend of us, whose son is also on the team, if she could look after Archie for a while. I wanted to have this conversation with Claire without my son present in case we started arguing again, so we just headed home to Tall after the game ended. I know a lot of people said I should just divorce my wife both to protect my son and to let her move on. But please don't be mad at me. When we sat down to talk, I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage just yet. At that moment, I was willing to compromise with Claire about a second child as long as we got couples therapy to address her and her family's feelings towards Archie. Even after the initial fight, when I said I wanted a vasectomy, I was mostly confused about what to do since I just wanted my family to be happy. Anyway, I started by asking her to explain why and when she had changed her mind. Claire started to apologize right away, and she told me that she had always dreamed of having a big family. She said that she tried to convince herself that she could accept not having children because she really loved me and she also loved Archie. She admitted to lying when I had asked her about it, because she didn't want to break up and she felt I was giving her an ultimatum of either choosing having kids or choosing me. I never intended it to be one. I just didn't think it was fair for any of us to be in a relationship if our goals didn't align. She also admitted that she had always been hoping I would change my mind once I saw what an excellent mom she was to Archie. What surprised me the most is that apparently my Mill tried to convince her not to get married because it wasn't fair of her to expect me to change. Claire also told me it was Mill's idea to babysit Archie and do all those things together so my wife could bond with him and get used to the idea that he may end up being our only child. When I asked her why her mom had made the comments about blood being important, Claire said she had asked her parents to say that to convince me why it was important for her to have her own kids. I told her how hurt I had been by what they said, and also when she told me she had changed her mind about the adoption. Claire said she was just scared that one day Archie would want to reconnect with his birth mother, and that he wouldn't love her anymore. Apparently, she had been reading a lot of stories from other step-parents who had been cast aside, especially when the birth parents showed up again, or if there was a divorce involved. Her anxiety got worse around a year ago. According to Claire, She had always introduced herself as Archie's stepmom when she picked him up from the daycare because she didn't want to take Anna's place. I lost my patience and reminded her that Anna had abandoned us, so there was no place to take. At this point, we started arguing and going in circles. She accused me of not understanding how hard it is to be a step-parent, and I told her she was fighting against windmills. After we calmed down a bit, she told me she got even more scared of being replaced when Archie started asking about his mom. She also felt guilty because she was sure he only asked, because she kept correcting everyone about the whole mother/stepmother thing. She also said I made it worse because I didn't tell him the truth about Anna and tried to sugarcoat things by telling him that his mom felt guilty because he had been born very sick, and she didn't want to see him suffer. Honestly, I just didn't know what to tell him because I didn't want him to feel sad about being abandoned. Claire accused me of still caring about Anna, and that's why I didn't want to paint her in a bad light. When I told her I just panicked and made up a lie in that moment, she said I should have just refused to answer and take Archie to a therapist. We did get him one the same month. That's when Claire said I should have tried to find Anna so we could have split custody and Archie could be with his real mom. I admit I lost it and started yelling at her that Anna was just a horrible person, and that if it were up to me, she'd never see Archie. She had s-dotted me. She had tried to manipulate me when she got pregnant. She had abandoned my son right after he was born, and after all these years, she had never bothered to reach out. Claire yelled back, saying I couldn't understand what a woman goes through, and that maybe she left because of PEPT, and that I made it worse by just giving up and moving to another country, where Anna couldn't find me. I said that wasn't the reason why we left, and she knew it. I also told her how everyone who knew me back home had non-contact information on my address, so it's not like I was hiding. What finally broke me is that she said it was my fault that Anna left because I refused to step up and do the right thing by marrying Anna. She tried to apologize right away and said she didn't mean it, but I just told her to leave and that I wanted a divorce. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I just locked myself in Archie's room and started to cry like a baby until she left. She just packed some stuff and later sent me a text saying she'd be staying with her parents. The rest of the day was a blur. I went to pick up my son and briefly told my friend I was getting a divorce. She and her wife hugged me and told me they would support us in any way they could, especially if I needed someone to look after Archie. I spent the rest of the day with him, and we decided to have a pijamada, just the two of us. We ordered pizza, played with his new toys, and watched some movies until he fell asleep. Since I can't sleep, I thought I'd write this update to vent or something. I feel like my life just imploded and I'm so heartbroken. I don't even know how Archie is gonna take it, so that's also gonna be hard. Anyway, I guess this is my final update since there's nothing else to say. Thank you again for all the advice, comments where the op has replied. Subscreen, right call. You gave her one more chance than many of us would, and she blew it in the most clear-cut and worst way possible. I cannot imagine someone who promised to be your lifelong partner taking your rapists, a lifelong stranger's, side over yours. Don't feel bad about divorce. You are doing the right thing not just for yourself but for your son. That woman wanted to invite the rapist who abandoned him back into his life so she could crush his heart again. 2. I hope you have / will go after Anna for child support. Mental Woodpecker 300 stands strong op. She has made it clear that Archie would be treated differently. Even after trying to backpedal about the blood ties and doubts about adoption, she still brought up how Archie should be with his mother at least part-time, and that you should have tried harder to keep her around to be Archie's mom. She's saying she wants her own child. And her saying you should have stepped up and married the woman that assaulted you. That's just vile. Is still exactly that regardless of what gender the victim is. You aren't any less of a man for not just getting over it and marrying your assailant. If anything, I commend you for standing strong both for yourself and for your son. Protect your son since she has been manipulating him about a sibling. God knows what else she might have been saying to him. This is not someone you want around your son. Next story. Future mother-in-law insisted I wear her 50-year-old wedding dress. When I refused, my fiancé took her side and then slapped me. My 26F and my fiancé 27M got engaged in February 2024. We are planning our wedding to be in March next year on the day of when we first met. We began planning the wedding May 2024. The theme is light blue and white. It's important to know that my fiancé is an only child. A couple weeks ago, I was shopping for wedding dresses with my mom and sister when I found this lovely dress, and it needed only a little bit of tailoring to fit me. When I sent photos to my fiancé, he thought it was beautiful too. Now here's the problem: my future meal was over, and when my fiancé showed her the dress, she immediately called me. I ignored her as I was still with my mom and sister. When I got back to my fiancé's house, my future meal was waiting for me. When I walked through the door, she immediately got up from the couch and accused me of lying, claiming I had promised to wear her dress. I never had. This was such an out-of-the-blue thing for my future Mill, as we normally get on really well. I told her I had never promised her anything. She then yelled at me, calling me a liar, and that I didn't deserve to get married to my fiancé. I was so taken aback by that I just walked away. I have done so much to make sure this woman likes me, and now she doesn't because I don't want to wear her wedding dress that went out of style 50 years ago. Once I had stormed off to my room, my fiancé joined once he had sent his mother back to her house. He asked what had happened, and I explained my side of the story, about how I was just suddenly accused of all these lies I never said. He then explained his mom's side of things, which were that apparently when I first started dating my fiancé, future Mill had shown her wedding dress, and I had said I would love to get married in that. I started dating my fiancé 5 years ago. I honestly don't ever remember saying that, but it was so long ago I might have, but I don't think so, as the dress isn't the prettiest. The next day I woke up with messages from my future Mill saying that I'm such a liar, and that my fiancé shouldn't marry a liar. I'm going to be honest, I teared up as I read those messages because I tired so hard to be liked by her, and I thought I was. I told my fiancé about the messages, and he said that she's probably just hurt that I don't want to wear her dress. But it's my wedding, why can't I wear what I want? Please tell me your opinions. Update 1. Hi, I'm not sure how to start this, but I sat my fiancé down and talked to him about my female. When he finally gave me the time to actually talk, I mentioned how I wanted to wear my own dress to my wedding, and he once again brought up how it was also for our parents. WTF. I explained calmly that it was a union of us, not our parents, and unless his mom wanted to pay for our entire wedding, it was our wedding. Then I said how he found the dress I originally wanted beautiful, and he only changed his mind when his mom raised the issue. He said he only said it was beautiful because that's what I would have wanted to hear, and he found it ugly. I didn't react to the last comment, and instead I brought up how I could wear something else of his mom's, and he completely shut down that idea, saying his mom offered the dress and I couldn't take something from her if she didn't offer it, and that I should be grateful she offered her dress. I admit I was angry at this, and replied with, "Am I marrying you or your mother?" When I asked him this, he yelled at me, saying that what his mom was asking wasn't a big deal, and that I was blowing this out of proportion. After he said I was making a big deal out of my wedding dress, I stormed out and called my mom, explaining the whole situation. When I went back downstairs, he was gone, and he texted me explaining he's going to be staying with his mom until I come to my senses. I'm now rethinking my whole relationship, as I can't marry him if I'm also marrying his mother, and I'm not going to be one of those people talking about my horrible Mill, even though I sort of am. Comments where the op has replied, commenter, Nenta, honestly I don't understand why women think the dress is worth saving. Most younger women have no intention of using their mother's old dress, so why do they think their daughter will use theirs? I get it was traditional to pass it down in the family, but that was when they were all handmade by the family, and making a new fancy one was a big deal. Oh, it wasn't made by a family member, it's purely just her dress. No sentimental value besides being her dress. My fiancé says it's up to me, but he'd like it if I wore her dress. Commenter, you have a fiancé problem more than a meal problem. He should have your back. Does he always take her side? Oop, nothing like this has happened before. My Mill and I got along quite well before this. Now I'm not sure we could ever get along again. Commenter. Oh, come on. Your Mill sounds irrational, manipulative, and controlling. If she's like this before you get married, best of luck to you after the wedding. She's not likely to change, and your fiancé seems like a mommy's boy. But have a real good think about your future. Is it possible that Mill has been hiding her true self all this time? Because people don't tend to become so manipulative overnight. Oop, this whole thing has changed my opinion on her. I just don't understand how it all happened. That is possible. But we haven't had any conflicts like this, so maybe she wasn't hiding. She was just never given the opportunity to show her true self. Update 2. August 29th, 2024. Thank you all for the comments. I appreciate it so much. I talked to my mom and she said that my fiancé is acting weird and immature. Yesterday, my fiancé's mom called me explaining that we need to talk, and I agreed. She stared of saying how I was going back on a promise, and she was hurt by that. I never got the chance to defend myself before she said she is willing to move past it if I wear her dress. I completely shut down that idea and expressed how it was my day and I want to wear what I want. I then offered that I could wear something else of hers if she wants that. She didn't. She wants me to wear her dress. I tried again to explain how I wasn't comfortable wearing her dress, and I never promised to wear it, and it might have been one of my fiancé's ex-girlfriends. She, however, didn't take this and blew up at me through the phone, calling me a liar, unworthy, and a witch. I hung up on her and blocked her number. Then my fiancé texted me saying it wasn't fair to yell at his mother about the dress, and I'm acting so immature, but she was the one who blew up at me. Then I texted my fiancé to meet me at our house to talk things out. He refused, saying he would come tomorrow. So now I'm waiting for him to show up. Update 3, August 30th, 2024. Hello everyone. Again, thank you for the kind words and comments. I appreciate it so much and didn't expect it to sort of blow up, and I wish I could reply to all of you. I talked with my fiancé about his childish behavior and how I was angry at his mom and him for trying to get me to wear the dress. He tried to talk, but I quickly cut him off and continued saying how it was no longer about the dress, and it was how he took his mother's over mine. He wasn't happy with this, of course, and said he was only taking the side which was right. However, I disagreed with this and said a dress was a huge factor of a wedding and that I wouldn't wear something I wasn't comfortable with. And then I again brought up how he should be backing me, not his mother, if we are to get married. He got super pissed off at me for that, as I said if instead of when. He started yelling, saying how I was going to cancel our wedding just because of a stupid dress and how all this must be some joke. I stood firm and told him that this whole thing has got me questioning whether I want to marry him. He once again, surprise, surprise, tried to storm out. I followed him and told him he had to talk with me, or I'm ending it. He whipped around and slapped me. I stood there in shock as he slammed out front door and ran back to his mommy. Safe to say I am not marrying this man, and I am texting him just that. Thank you so much for all your comments. I can't explain how much you have all helped me. Hopefully I can find a man and marry him in less than a year so my beautiful planning doesn't get wasted. Comments where the op has replied, commenter, he slapped you. Oh hell no. He thinks you're being petty? Show him petty. Press charges against this mama's boy. And tell him to fuck off. You dodged 2 bullets. Oop, I'm definitely going to press charges for assault. Any part of me that loved him still got slapped right out. Literally, commenter. Oh my God. You are so fortunate to have seen his true colors before you married him. I know numerous women whose husband's personality did a 180 after getting married. I know this is an incredibly emotional time for you, but remember to be grateful that you were saved from marrying an abuser. Oop, I can't believe that was 5 years down the drain. Shame he ended up like that through no fault of my own. Update 4, August 30th, 2024. Hello again. This one will be a bit of a short update. Again, thank you for all the kind words and some of the not so kind. This morning I went to the police station and filed for a restraining order, which will then be taken to court. I have taken photos of the mark of my cheek from him slapping me and video footage of him coming and leaving my house. Hopefully all goes well and I can leave him and his crazy mom behind me. I'm going to use the wedding venue to host myself an early birthday party, and going with my sister. I took your advice and unblocked him and his mommy, which I then quickly had to mute as his mom blew up my phone. I texted my ex-fiancé calling things off and that he is an asshole. He replied with saying he's sorry and bombarding my phone with messages asking me to forgive him. Sorry for the short update, will probably be the last one for a while. Again, thank you for the comments and support. She betrayed me after years of love, and now she wants me back, but I'm done. Hey there, this story has already been covered on my channel before, but there is new updates. Wife confessed to drunk cheating. I turned into a robot and kicked her out. She tried everything to win me back, even offering 3 M's, but I chose divorce. I, 32M, have been married to my wife Kate, 30F, for 4 years, together for 9. Our relationship has been amazing, loving and supportive. We have good communication, hardly ever argue, and our bedroom life has gone from strength to strength over the years. We discussed cheating in the past, and I was always clear that we would be over if it ever happened. Kate went home to visit her family last weekend, which was fairly normal. Before she left on the Friday night, we had a minor argument about keeping the house tidy, so our communication was limited on Saturday, but I knew she was going out to meet some friends at a bar. I trusted her 100%, so didn't think anything of it. Before I fell asleep, I texted her saying that I hope she had a nice night. When I woke up on Sunday morning, I had a missed call from Kate at 4 a.m., so I immediately called her to check if she was okay, but no answer. After a few hours, I tried again a few times, but still no answer. Around an hour later, I got a message saying she was fine and was driving back soon. Kate got home late afternoon and looked awful. She had clearly been crying, was not wearing any makeup, unusual for her, and looked like a shell of a person. I knew right away something was wrong, but she wouldn't let me hug her and would barely speak. I sat her down on the couch and made her some tea. I gently encouraged her to tell me what was wrong, and she burst into uncontrollable tears for at least 10 minutes while I was trying to comfort her. She then proceeded to tell me, stopping every few words, that she had slept with someone last night after the bar. At that moment, something in my brain broke. I can't describe it any other way. I immediately got up and jumped in my car and drove off. I went to a park and walked around it for about an hour. Kate was calling my phone constantly and I turned it off. When I got home, I grabbed 2 suitcases from the garage and went to our bedroom. I threw some of Kate's clothes and shoes into them and left them by the front door. Kate was lying on the floor in the living room, curled up into a ball, sobbing. I called her best friend who lives nearby and told her that Kate needed a place to stay and a ride to her place, and that Kate could explain everything to her later. I told Kate I was leaving for an hour and that her friend was coming to pick her up. She grabbed onto my legs, trying to stop me from leaving. When I returned home again, Kate was gone and so were the cases. On Monday, with a clearer head, I answered one of Kate's many calls and told her that I needed her to send me an email with as much details as possible of that night, and if she leaves anything out, there will be no hope of reconciliation. I received this email on Monday night but still haven't opened it. Since then, everyone has been trying to contact me, but I have just been working, exercising, and sleeping. One of her friends turned up at my house with an attitude demanding an explanation. I told her to speak to Kate and closed the door in her face. I have also been speaking to divorce lawyers, have moved money into separate accounts and blocked Kate and all of her friends on everything. Everything I have done since I found out seems like I have been on autopilot. I don't feel angry, upset, or overly emotional. Just numb. Kate posted a note through the door yesterday asking me to meet tomorrow, but I'm conflicted. Should I meet her? Will it change anything? Is there any point in trying to reconcile? Is it normal to feel like a robot, and how do I snap out of this? Edit. Just to add that when I came home the first time, Kate confirmed it was consensual. She was drunk, but knew what she was doing. Update. After reading your comments, I decided to meet with Kate, but not read the email. Kate came to the house yesterday, and when I opened the door, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me and started mumbling apologies, but I stopped her, and we sat down to talk. I started by telling Kate that I would be recording the audio of the conversation, and she agreed. I then asked her to explain what happened, and told her that I haven't read the email she sent. Kate said she had been at the bar with two friends. I know and like both of them, and told me what she had to drink. I was surprised at how little she drank because it was the same amount we would normally drink when going for dinner, a few glasses of wine and a cocktail. She admitted she was only slightly tipsy. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother, Max, 27M, who came to pick them up around midnight. It's a running joke in their group that Max has had major crush on Kate since high school, and I had heard them joke about this. The four of them went to get some food and Max then dropped each one off until it was just him and Kate. Kate said she didn't want him to drive the 20 minutes to her parents' place after working all day, so would just order an Uber from his apartment. She went into his apartment to order the Uber but couldn't get one. Max suggested she should crash in his bed and he would take the sofa. He would then drop her off in the morning. Kate refused and continued to try to find an Uber. They were sitting on Max's bed and he kissed her. She kissed him back and they ended up having sex. After that, she broke down crying from guilt and Max took her home. She cried for another hour, then tried to call me to tell me what she had done. We had to stop a number of times because Kate kept breaking down and crying hysterically. She told me it was a huge mistake. She got caught up in the moment. It was terrible. She only loves me, blah blah blah. After she was done, I told her that her story didn't make sense, but it didn't matter at this stage because I was done. This caused another breakdown. I told her I was going to continue with the divorce preparations, but for the next month we would be separated with no contact. I also told her that we would both remain faithful, would get a full STD panel, and she would tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she sticks to these conditions, I would be willing to meet again to see if there was any way forward other than divorce. She enthusiastically agreed to this, but made it clear that she did not expect me to stay faithful to her. I know many of you will criticize this decision, but I need to be sure that divorce is the right option after I have had time to process everything that has happened. I am still 99% sure that is where we are heading, but I need to be 100% certain. Update 2. A few things have happened in the last week, so I thought I would make an update post if anyone is interested. First of all, I'm not in robot mode anymore. I have been having bursts of intense feelings of anger and betrayal, but have been keeping busy with work and exercise. My friends have also been great since they found out and have been dragging me out of the house to hang out. I decided to read the email and wish I hadn't. The story Kate told in the email was mostly the same, but there was no mention of going into Max's apartment to order an Uber. There were also pretty explicit details of what they did, for how long, and that they had apparently used a condom. I will never be able to forget this description. Many people who were originally criticizing me for kicking Kate out of the house have now apologized, but they can keep it. Kate's parents reached out to apologize and I spoke to them because we had a good relationship before all of this. They begged me to try to work it out but said they understood if I decided to get divorced. I didn't commit to either option. Kate's other friend that was there that night contacted me to tell me her side of the story. It mostly matched up. Bar food home. She said Kate could stay over at her house, but she refused, saying she was driving home early the next morning. Max apparently insisted that he would take Kate home. The version of the story that she told didn't mention Kate trying to get an Uber, only that Max invited her in and she accepted. I asked her if she had ever suspected anything before, and she told me that about a year ago, She went to meet Kate for coffee but found Max sitting with her when she arrived. Apparently, Kate looked guilty, but when asked about it, she said they just met by chance. Sarah, Max's sister, also reached out to me, and I spoke to her too. She was angry with both Max and Kate and told me a similar story. Apparently, her whole family are angry with Max and she had not spoken to Kate since she found out. She apologized on behalf of her idiot brother and said she had warned him to stay away from Kate since high school. She didn't think anything else had happened between them. I have had zero contact from Kate but heard that she was going to be moving into an Airbnb near our house. Apparently, she is not coping well and called in sick from work a few times over the last few weeks. She does have support from the friend she is currently living with, and I asked her parents to keep an eye on her. Her parents came up to see her this past weekend. I went out with some friends at the weekend and ended up drunk at a bar. I was talking to a girl there who I probably could have gone home with, but I stopped myself because I wanted to keep my self-respect. Reading the email and hearing what they had done made me give up hope of repairing this, especially when I know she is not being truthful with me on other things, so who knows. I will be moving ahead with the divorce and might not even wait a month before telling Kate that this is my final decision. Update 3. I debated posting this update, but a lot of people seem to be invested in this mess, so here it is. Apologies in advance if this is TMI. Kate sent me an email last week asking to pick up some things she needed for work. My lawyer told me not to prevent her from having access to the house or her possessions, so I reluctantly agreed that she could come over on Thursday night when I would be at the gym. I told her to be out by 7:30, but when I got home at 8 she was still there. When I walked in, she had left a few work-related items next to the stairs, and she was chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked amazing with her hair and makeup done, wearing one of the dresses I like. The whole place had been tidied and cleaned. I calmly asked her to leave immediately, and she made her way to the door but stopped and asked if we could speak. I should have said no, but I eventually agreed. We sat down and had a conversation for around an hour, which jumped from topic to topic. Again, I told her I would record the audio and she agreed. I started by asking her if she had kept her side of the agreement we made the last time we spoke. She said she had taken an STI test which was all negative. Mine was too, thankfully, and a pregnancy test which was negative. She hadn't been with anyone else, and also told a few friends and family what happened, and many of them were angry and were not speaking to her. I asked a lot of questions that had been turning over in my mind for the last few weeks. She confirmed that her reason for going into Max's apartment, the Uber story, was BS, and she said he invited her in for a drink, and she agreed knowing at some level that something was going to happen. She can't explain why she did this other than being selfish and enjoying the attention. She also confirmed that she had texted with Max a few times over the years because he would shower her with compliments and make her feel good. He would always initiate, and she was apparently careful not to lead him on, and said she had never sent him explicit messages or pictures. Kate also told me that they had hooked up about 6 months before we got together but never had sex. She admitted that she was always a bit curious. Her story about being caught at the coffee shop was that Max had texted her asking what she was up to, and she had told him where she was. He then turned up. She swore this was the first time they had ever done anything since we had been together. She said there was nothing missing in our relationship, and she hates herself for ruining her perfect marriage and causing me so much pain. I told her that I still don't believe her story and that there was no point in continuing the conversation. She calmly asked what she would need to do to make this right, offering up her phone, location sharing, not going out without me, etc. She had clearly been doing some research. I said that I had no plans to become her prison guard, especially when I would never get over the betrayal. Things then took an unexpected turn which caught me completely off guard. She asked me to turn off the audio recording because she had something private she wanted to discuss and didn't want other people hearing it. I refused, and she reluctantly continued. She asked if I had been involved with anyone else sexually since all of this happened, making it clear she was fine with it. I told her no, and she said that I must be going crazy. We used to have sex almost daily, and started talking dirty about all of the things I could do with and to her. This involved a lot of kinky things that I had wanted to try or had only done a few times. She said she wanted to meet my needs, even if we did not get back together. She said we could have as many threesomes as I wanted from now on, or we could be open on my side only, and she would even find partners for us/me. She was trying very hard to turn me on, and I stayed silent until she asked who I wanted to have a threesome with. For some reason, I mentioned the name of her co-worker who is 5 years younger than Kate, and a total knockout. This surprised her, but she was in too deep and asked me what I wanted to do with her. I went into detail about a pretty hardcore scenario, and Kate was encouraging me until I said that she would just be watching. This again caught her off guard, but she went along with it. Later on, I realized that I only said all of this as a petty attempt to hurt Kate, which I don't feel good about. She was obviously convinced that her plan was working, so she pulled up her dress and got into my favorite position on the couch, begging me to have sex with her. I'll admit that for a few seconds my body reacted, even though my head was not in the game. Everything suddenly came into focus, and the content of her email came flooding into my head. I can't explain why, but I started to laugh. Not just a chuckle, but a full-on belly laugh. She looked hurt and moved away, then started to cry. I told her it was time for her to go, and she left quickly, probably due to the embarrassment. I also said she needed to hurry up and get a lawyer because we are getting divorced. The post-nut clarity after she left confirmed that I had dodged a bullet. I have a meeting with my lawyer later this week and want to move forward with the divorce as quickly as possible. Final update. Thought I would provide a final update on the situation for anyone that is interested. The last few months have been tough, and I have only seen Kate in person a handful of times. After a few weeks of no contact, I decided that we should discuss things with a clearer head. We went for lunch and had a calm, respectful conversation about everything that had happened and what reconciliation might look like. Kate said she would do anything to get things back on track, and I believe her but didn't commit to anything. After that, Kate asked me to go with her to see her therapist, who is also experienced in dealing with married couples. I thought about it for a few days before agreeing. The session was tough with a lot of tears, but I didn't get a straight answer on why Kate had decided to cheat. The therapist was surprisingly fair to both of us and was not judgmental. We again discussed reconciliation, but I told her that I thought it was best to proceed with the divorce. Last week, I drove up to her parents' house to drop off some tools I had borrowed from her dad. We had arranged for Kate to be there and for her parents to go out for a few hours to give us a chance to talk. I spoke with her parents alone, who were heartbroken, which was hard, but they were both very supportive. During the conversation with Kate, I told her clearly that I had given it a lot of thought, but I wanted to move ahead with the divorce. It came down to the fact that, in my view, we would never get back to where we were, and I realistically can't see myself ever getting over the betrayal. Even if we could regain the trust, it could take a decade of hard work, and that is too big of a risk for me. Kate finally accepted this, and we had calm discussion about how we would divide assets, sell the house, etc., and wrote an email to our respective lawyers. We left each other on good terms. The divorce should be finalized by the end of the year, and the house will be put up for sale soon. In the meantime, we will go no contact and agreed not to start dating until everything is finalized. I have had a few casual hookups, and it feels strange to be going back to being single after all this time. I have been hitting the gym, spending a lot of time with friends and family, and getting back into my hobbies. I'm optimistic about the future, and although I'm still devastated by the loss of my marriage, I feel that this has made me grow as a person, thanks to those of you who have offered advice and support. Second story. Wife cheated on me with a guy she told me not to worry about. I found out by checking her phone after I got suspicious. I never imagined I'd be sharing my personal struggles online, but here I am. I'm not just venting. I want to show others that even when your world crumbles, there can be light at the end of the tunnel. My name's Tom, and I'm just an average guy working as a software developer. But this story isn't really about me. It's about my ex-wife Sarah, and how her actions turned my life upside down. Sarah and I met through mutual friends about 8 years ago. She worked as a realtor and was incredibly passionate about her career. I admired her drive and dedication to her clients. Sarah had this infectious energy, always on the go, always working to improve things for us. She made you feel like anything was possible if you put in the effort. I remember joking when we first met that I'd trust her to help me buy a house, and probably a lot more too. She asked if I meant it, and I said yes. We went on our first date to the movies, and she enthusiastically told me all about her favorite films. Conversation flowed so naturally with Sarah that I fell for her quickly. I don't believe in love at first sight, but she came pretty close to making me a believer back then. When we started dating, I knew Sarah had a demanding schedule. Real estate is a tough business with long, unpredictable hours. But I was supportive of her career, which she appreciated. We made a good team, me with my steady 9-to-5 job, and her with her more variable schedule. I didn't mind, because I knew she loved what she did. And I loved her. There was one thing that bothered me early on, though. Sarah got pretty close with a colleague of hers, who I'll call Mike. Mike worked at the same real estate firm, and they seemed to spend a lot of time together. At first I didn't think much of it. They were co-workers after all. But as time went on, I noticed their work meetings becoming more and more frequent. Sarah would often talk about Mike in a way that felt off to me. I'm not typically a jealous person. In fact, I'm the opposite. I wanted Sarah to have the freedom to pursue her career goals, but something about how she'd take Mike's calls, even during our date nights, really got under my skin. I'd make the occasional comment about how she acted like she was in love with Mike. Sarah would get defensive and snap back at me, but looking back, I wonder if that was more of a guilty reaction than just playful teasing. I brought it up casually once, just to get a read on the situation. "You and Mike seem pretty close," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Sarah laughed it off. "Oh, Tom, it's nothing. We just work well together. "You don't need to worry about it." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something still felt off. Still, I didn't push the issue. We were happy, and I didn't want to create problems over what might be nothing. Eventually, Sarah and Mike started spending less time together after he transferred to a new department. Sarah joked that she was sad to see him go. I joked back that now she was all mine instead of Mike's. But part of me wonders now if that was really a joke after all. A few years into our relationship, I proposed and Sarah said yes. We got married, bought a house together, and soon after had a beautiful baby girl. Life seemed good. Sure, Sarah was still busy with work, but I figured that came with the territory of being married to someone with a demanding career. Our daughter Lily became the center of our world, and for a while, everything felt perfect. But then Mike started appearing in the picture again. It wasn't constant, but often enough that I noticed. Sarah would casually mention running into him at the office or collaborating on a deal. I told myself it was nothing. After all, we'd been married for years and had a child together. Surely she wouldn't jeopardize all that for some work fling, right? Sarah mentioned one day that Mike had transferred back to their office, something about them needing more staff at that branch. I asked if it would impact her work. Sarah got defensive and insisted nothing was going on. I believed her at the time. She said Mike had recently broken up with his girlfriend, but maintained they just worked well as a team closing deals. About a year ago, things started to change. Sarah began spending more and more time at the office. She'd come home late, claiming she had to stay for closings or client meetings. At first, I didn't question it. This was normal in her line of work, and I knew how stressful the real estate market could be. But as the late nights became more frequent, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I started paying closer attention and noticed little things. How she'd suddenly get a text and smile at her phone. How she'd go out of her way to mention how busy Mike was lately. It all seemed too coincidental. Sarah also became less affectionate. We had busy lives and a child, but I noticed she'd often go to bed without even a goodnight kiss. When I'd hug her, she'd tense up before hugging back. Something felt very wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but suspicion began eating away at me. One night after Sarah came home late again, I decided I had to know for sure. I'm not proud of it, but I went through her phone while she was in the shower. Sure enough, I found flirty text messages between her and Mike, way too intimate for just coworkers. There were vague plans to meet up at odd hours under the guise of showings and client meetings. The final straw was when I checked her location history. I found she'd been going to an address that wasn't listed on any of her recent deals, an address that happened to be Mike's. She'd been lying to me for months, sneaking off to hook up with him while I was at home taking care of our daughter. I was furious. I had no idea how to confront Sarah without completely losing it. So I hatched a plan. I decided to pose as a potential buyer and set up a showing with Sarah and Mike. I wanted to catch them in the act, not just for my own closure, but to make Sarah face the consequences of her actions. I called their office pretending to be interested in a house Sarah and Mike were co-listing. I set up an appointment for a private showing, and they both agreed to meet me there. On the day of the showing, I arrived early and waited in my car. I watched as Sarah and Mike pulled up together, laughing and looking far too comfortable with each other. Then I saw it. They kissed. Right there in broad daylight. Sarah wasn't even wearing her wedding ring. It told me everything about how little she valued our marriage outside of our home. I wanted to run away and forget what I'd seen. But I knew I had to go through with my plan, for my own sake. I got out of the car and approached them. The look on Sarah's face when she saw me was priceless. She froze and Mike went pale. They knew exactly why I was there. I didn't even have to say anything, but I did. I told Sarah that if she wanted to throw away everything we had, she could. She tried to stammer out an excuse, but I wasn't having it. I turned and walked away, leaving them both standing there speechless. That night, I packed up Sarah's things and told her to leave. I wasn't going to let her continue disrespecting me and our marriage while living under the same roof. I kept Lily with me. There was no way I was letting Sarah take her after everything she'd done. The divorce process was brutal. Sarah tried to play the victim, claiming I was overreacting and that it was just a mistake, but I had all the evidence I needed. In the end, I got full custody of Lily. Sarah was left with nothing but the consequences of her own actions. As for Mike, karma caught up with him too. Turns out he was married and cheating on his wife with Sarah. When Mike's wife found out, she filed for divorce as well. Mike ended up losing his family and his reputation. It's been a tough road, but I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. Lily is my world now, and I'm doing everything I can to give her the best life possible. Being a single dad isn't easy, but I've got a great support system of family and friends. We're making it work. This is my story. It's still painful to think about, to remember how much it hurt to discover that after all the years and hard work I'd put into our relationship, Sarah could hurt me like that. The thought of it still stings. but I'm finally able to move forward.